Welcome to Not Your Ordinary Parts, a podcast where we talk about hard things associated with the human experience with the goal of increasing awareness, growth, and healing. You may hear information from professionally licensed therapists, life coaches, healers, doctors, etc. This information is not medical advice or therapy and is not meant to replace actual therapy or instructions given by a doctor or personal therapist. I'm your host, Jalon Johnson. My guest today is Sarah Baldwin. Sarah is a somatic experiencing practitioner, trauma trained coach, nervous system expert, and the creator of a deeply impactful body of work that helps people heal at the level of the nervous system. She is extensively trained in polyvagal theory, internal family systems, attachment theory, and other trauma informed modalities, all of which shape her integrative, science backed, and deeply human approach to healing. Sarah's work is rooted in one powerful truth: we can't think our way to safety. We have to feel it. Through private coaching, her signature courses, You Make Sense, and Navigating Your Nervous System, and a dynamic social media presence, Sarah helps individuals begin building true internal safety, not just in theory, but in the body where trauma lives. Her approach is both compassionate and practical, demystifying complex neuroscience and translating it into tools that help people move from anxiety, shutdown, and overwhelm into groundedness, connection, and resilience. Sarah teaches that our survival responses aren't flaws, they're protective strategies we once needed, and healing begins not by overriding them, but by understanding them. Most importantly, Sarah's work isn't just about regulation, it's about liberation, and she helps people reconnect with the parts of themselves they had to abandon just to survive. Whether someone is stuck in a freeze response, constantly overfunctioning, or simply feeling exhausted by the weight of unprocessed pain, Sarah offers a map home to safety, to wholeness, and to the self. And her work has resonated with thousands around the world who felt broken or beyond help until they discovered that they were never broken at all, just dysregulated, just in survival, and simply waiting for a way back to themselves. So, Sarah, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me. What an eloquent writer you are. Everyone listening probably thinks I wrote that. I did not write that. And as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I hope you write a book. Uh,
Thank
that
you.
was so beautifully said, and I'm deeply, deeply moved by the words that you shared about me, and more moved to be here with you. And as we were naming before we got on, recording this, it's such a testament to your own internal strength and resilience to say, I'm going to lean into where I feel called and to be of
Mhm.
service. Because I think honestly, it's one of the scariest things is to follow our calling, and in doing that, you've created such an incredible podcast and space for people to come to. So I'm so honored to be here with you and with everyone listening.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, I gave a brief introduction, but so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got to who and
Hmm.
where you are today, please?
Yeah, sure. So, like so many people that are in certainly my field, mental health and healing in general, I first came to this work as, and I don't know if that's particularly what you're asking, but I'm going to go to that place. I hope that's okay.
Yes.
I came to this work as and because it was my way to freedom. I have a quite a severe complex trauma history and grew up in poverty in northern New Hampshire, very rural part of the country, and in lots of trauma inside my home, uh, severe neglect and severe sexual abuse through the majority of my childhood, among other things. And so as a result of that, I was really struggling from the symptoms of unresolved trauma. And I didn't know they were symptoms. I just knew that it felt like I was trapped in a perpetual hell inside of myself that I didn't know how to get out of. Every great religion talks about this suffering or this thing called hell. And to me, after doing this work for a long time, I really believe that's what it is, to be trapped in this experience that we can't make our way out of. And so it was my own journey of, 18 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles and, and finally was in safety, or about 20 years ago, and began down this journey of trying to make my way out. felt like the options were either to not be here anymore, not because I didn't want to be here, but because the pain of being here was just too horrific, or to find a way to freedom. And so I really had to devote all of my 20s and a lot of my 30s to this, half of my 30s to this, digging myself out of this place. And it was my only hobby. It was my only uh, um, uh, focus in life. And there was a lot of things that I tried and then didn't work, and then I tried other things, and then I started to try stuff that did work, and then I was trying to connect the dots of different modalities. And when I found somatic work and the modalities that I'm now trained in, everything started to really shift. And so after doing that, um, I'll never forget the first moment where I was fully embodied, and I was sitting in my somatic clinician's office, and it was just a cloudy day in LA. Think it was a Wednesday, just here at 3:30, and I was sitting in her office, and there was tears started to roll down my face. And I remember saying, as I looked out at a green, beautiful tree, I said, there'll never be words for the overwhelm that trauma is and the hell that it is, and there will never be words for how extraordinary the most ordinary moment can be when you're actually safe to be here and be alive. It's really a turning point in my life, and that all the other stuff, it's nice, but what really matters is that we can be present to this moment. And so in that journey, long journey, it led me to wanting to help as many people see how powerful they are, to know the answers are inside, that there is a path forward and out, even though, lots of folks coming from my history, very few make it to thriving. And it's not because people aren't powerful and don't have the capacity and ability. It's because my field has really done us a misservice in not making this work accessible and not also giving people an order to the process. And so that led me down a decade of my own training and a multitude of modalities that are all really, I believe, necessary to facilitate holistic change. And that includes somatic experiencing, psychodrama, somatic attachment work, somatic parts work, and a number of other things. And of course, polyvagal interventions, and seeing the interweaving of them. They're all really needed together. And that's led me to my life's work that I hope to do till I take my last breath here.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very personal, very open and vulnerable. And to be, I mean, you said that not a lot of people get to thriving coming from a background like yours. And how would you describe thriving for someone who may not even understand what it means to get out of survival or who has a extensive trauma history?
Mm. So when I say thriving, what I mean is that our nervous system is no longer actively protecting us from the perpetual pain of the past that thinks is happening today. So when we're trapped in that trauma, that's what's occurring. And that was certainly what was occurring for me for decades. And then we get to a place. And I was on this place in my journey where I remember looking around my home. I was doing a virtual therapeutic work. And I said, it's a beautiful prison now. It used to be a hellish one, but now it's nice in here. And it's got, the metaphoric, like beautiful design and soft pillows and nice smelling candles. And it's really nice in here. I've got some dogs. I've got, maybe like two couples, two friends maybe. And my parts were saying like, let's just stay inside this place we're in. But it was still a prison. And what I mean by that is my life was smaller than the life that my truest self, soul self felt called to. When I say a big life, I don't mean that you're famous or you've got a yacht. What I mean is that you're fully expressed in your beingness, like every flower and sequoia tree and mountain. And I think, and I believe deeply that we're all meant to be fully expressed. And so I was living a smaller life. That meant like I really wanted to travel, but I didn't because it was too scary. I really wanted to help the world, but it meant using my voice and taking up space, and that would have been too scary. I really wanted community, but people were too scary. So I like worked, and then I would, you know, go to the same gym and the same grocery store, and I would come home, and It was just a smaller version of living than was possible for me. And so we get to this next chapter where now that we have safety, we have to show, not tell our system, it's not only safe to live, it's safe to be big. It's safe to thrive. It's safe to take up space. Not only is it safe, it's what the world needs, because when you encounter somebody who is fully expressed, oh my goodness, we just want to be near them. And they're giving such gifts to the world when people are fully expressed. So that's what I mean by thriving.
Mm. Thank you for that explanation, because I think most people, or I won't say most, a good number of people may think thriving is based on possessions or your lot in life. And for you to say that thriving means that you're fully expressed, or that that it's okay to take up space and to bloom and blossom, that definition may not be something that a lot of people look at it in the way that it really means, especially because we don't look at thriving in a way of like being our true authentic selves.
Yeah, exactly. I've used nature as a teacher so much in my life. I think I look at this work and trauma work from the lens, of course, science, but it's also wildly mystical. And when we look at everything in nature, it is meant to thrive and to be fully expressed as it is. And the peony doesn't say, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't be this beautiful or this vibrant," because I don't want anyone to feel bad. It says, "I am what I am." And the
Mm.
fern is just as beautiful, and the fig tree and the sequoia tree and the palm tree. And when we're fully expressed, the bee can arrive and the squirrel can live in the tree, and everything is helping one another, and we're in this beautiful reciprocity. So I think that's really important to remember, that the way that this mystery of creation exists is when we are in full expression. And by the way, I really believe our healing is the only way to that. When we are fully expressed, we are receiving just as much as we're giving, and it's this beautiful reciprocity that happens.
Listening to you now, I think it's safe to say that you are fully expressed or very close to it. How would you think people who grew up with you would describe the girl that they knew then versus who you are now?
Oh, so different. When I was really young, I remember this in first grade. Actually, it was second grade. It was my first teacher where I was like, oh, if I'm really, really good and I get everything right, and I'm the most interested in what we're doing in class, then I'll be special and I'll get love, because I grew up in such a dangerous home. And so I learned, if you're really, really good, you aren't ever upset and you're never disappointed, and you aren't ever angry, then you'll be loved. And so early on in my life, that's the way that I navigated it. And that protective part of me showed up, the fawning part. And and so my teachers would have said that about me, which is true about me, but that's a part, it's not the whole me, because other emotions are also so beautiful and important too, but they weren't available to me because I wouldn't have been safe. And so early on in my life, that's how I would have been, described. And throughout the entirety of my childhood, um, I think anyone I grew up with would say that it was never enough, meaning what I did. I started organizations. I care deeply about elderly people. And so I started like an organization at a nursing home where I paired people up who didn't have relatives with a kid at school, and they would stay with them for 4 years. And I was just constantly, but always, like, I would set a bar, get there, raise the bar, set the bar, get there, raise the bar. And so because I didn't feel worthy inside, I felt like if I was sacrificing myself or striving, then maybe I could be good. And so they would say that. She never slowed down. She was always going. And then I would say in middle school and high school, I had a part show up that was a little, how could I say this? She was tough. I learned that being soft wasn't totally safe, because it meant I would have to be with the pain, my own internal pain of what had happened. So part of how I navigated this was by losing my access to affect or emotion or feeling. So I could talk about, things, but I didn't feel them at all. I was dissociated from a lot of the trauma, but they're just, I am very sensitive, but I was disconnected from the sensitivity as a way to survive. And so the entirety of my childhood, I was never authentically me. I didn't know who I was until much later on in my life.
What did your early life and the years before you were fully expressed look like as far as safety?
Mm. You mean how I found safety or the lack of
The
safety in
lack of
general?
the lack of safety in general.
Yeah, I realized it was later in my journey, and it's been, I don't know how many years, 15-year healing journey for me. And when I mean 15 years, I mean like devoted
Mhm.
15 years. And I want to name for anyone listening, it doesn't have to be that long. It's that no one gave me a map. So I had to figure things out by doing things, the wrong things, because I didn't know what to do for a long time. Um, but I remember there was a moment where in my healing journey, it was the first time where with another person, actually with my partner, I was safely held without holding myself. And what I realized in that moment was, even as an embryo, like I felt it in my cells, that there wasn't a single moment, even at that little embryo, where I was actually held in a way where I wasn't holding me. I was conceived in an affair. My mother is a narcissist. I haven't talked to her in a very long time. Didn't protect me, didn't choose me or any of her 8 children, and it was just my birth father didn't choose me. My older siblings took it out on me that I was from this affair because it split up their parents, and my mother didn't take responsibility. So it was just danger after danger, lack of safety after lack of safety. She married my stepfather, who was abusive, a brother who was abusive. I was dropped off at lots of people watching me that were abusive, and so there was no safety to be found. And I felt throughout my life so broken. I so inherently wrong. And I've said this before, that when I learned this work and understood it, specifically when I ventured 12 years ago down this road professionally, it was like the most beautiful poetry I had ever read in my life. It makes me emotional thinking about it when I learned the science behind of all of this. And I'm a poet, I write poetry. When I read it, was learning it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a system inside of me that has been loving me in the form of protection my whole life. And I didn't even know that it was here. And I had no idea that it has been perfectly orchestrated and working and speaking to every organ system in my body, and the hormones and chemical releases, and just the wild nature of how this was called our autonomic nervous system was was loving me. It never left my side. And I began to not only deeply love myself through that process of learning, but also see how inherently unbroken I was, and meet the parts of me that had been protecting me my whole life, and begin to become that true protector to all parts. Yeah.
When was that, and are there words to describe that moment?
When I became that protector.
When you felt inherently safe and realized that you weren't broken and that you had this system inside of you that was taking care of you and that loves you.
Mm. There were many moments along the way where I like, wow, look at that, and then look at that, and then look at that. I remember a few specifically in some trainings early on that I was doing. With a friend of mine, I know you had a chat with her, a friend of mine, Deb Dana, and some other folks early on in my career, and and just sitting with the deeper understanding of it all, the the complexity of the neuroscience, in a particular, uh, like one of those really dated, ugly conference rooms. I'll never forget it. And I was just weeping, thinking, like, not just thinking, experiencing, oh, this is who I am. This is who we are. And then I, really started to feel this intense falling on my life that why is it that this work is only available for a very tiny portion of our world? Why is that? Why is it particularly the people that need it the most? People like myself, people in tiny villages in the middle of the Middle East and Asia and Africa and South America. Why is it that we don't get access to this? And why is it that most of the books on my bookshelf are written for people like me who understand this professionally? Why aren't it written for the average person? And everyone needs to know this. And it opened up the calling on my life, which I tried really hard to do, is to bring this to many people as possible in a way that's understandable and digestible, and that we can feel deeply empowered through it.
If you could describe in as few words as possible, what is it inside you that fuels your style of work and your desire to help so many people?
Mm, well, I deeply hope there's never a day where it doesn't make me so deeply emotional to do this work and to be able to be honored enough that people entrust me with their walk home, that they entrust me with the parts of themselves they've had to wall off because of the pain they experience. And I suppose this is where the mysticism component comes in, of what I call my soul. Um, has always been really loud, knocking at my door before I was doing this work. Like, and I was like, me? No, me? Why me? Aren't there people who should do this that aren't me? And I said, oh, we have other ones doing their job too, but yes, you. And I don't think I'll ever be able to put words to this thing inside of me that feels uh, so deeply called to helping other people come alive and to live the life they're here to live. I believe for everyone listening, so wholly and completely in your own becoming. You don't have to have a history like mine. Maybe you have loving parents who couldn't show up perfectly because no one taught them how to do it. Or maybe you experience sexism or racism or chronic microaggressions, or the world hasn't been safe to you, or you grew up in poverty or in war or whatever it is, and your system doesn't know you're safe. I know that you are inherently powerful and that your life is meant for you. I will believe it with every fiber of my being until you arrive there. You can always count on that with me. And uh, so I don't know how to, you said a few words. I don't know how to answer it besides with the tears that arrive every time I think about my love for each person. And I think maybe it comes from being so unloved in my life and finding such deep home inside of me and such deep reverence and love for me, and wanting so deeply for each person to be able to experience that. And so this is not a job to me. I don't do this for money. I don't do this because I want people to know who I am. I do it because I really care about each person's life and people being able to close of it.
I don't think anyone will question that
Mm.
after after you answering that question, and I think your tears um, are the best way that you can show that because sometimes words don't give us answers. But I mean, I felt how deep you feel about this, and it's not something that is based on money or is based on you having a name. You can tell that you really, really want to help people, and that with every fiber in your being, it's what you're called to do. So thank you for listening to that calling and answering.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for that question.
You're welcome. One of the most profound things that you teach is that you can't think your way to safety. You have to feel it. Can you explain what that means to someone who may have never felt safe in their body?
Hmm. The beautiful self-protective system I know other people on your podcast have talked about, including maybe the pioneer in this, Stephen Porges. But our autonomic nervous system is subcortical, means it lives in our bodies. And that also means it's not connected to our prefrontal cortex or our cortical thinking brain. Essentially, to put that into simple terms, it doesn't understand a verbal language when we're in dysregulation because that part of our brain totally shuts off, which is why anyone listening, if you've ever tried to tell yourself, there's nothing to worry about, just calm down, or I can trust my partner, they're not going to leave me, or they're not cheating on me, I've been with them for 15 years, nothing's happened, I can trust them, or I'm safe to go out into the world, or there's nothing to be anxious about in a social situation, or there's nothing to be ashamed of, I didn't do anything wrong. But you can't feel it. The reason that we can't feel it is because the system literally cannot hear us. It's like if I was speaking a foreign language that I don't understand, or someone was speaking a foreign language to me that I don't understand. They were saying, you know, um, I love you. I don't know what they're saying because I can't understand their language. And so we have to learn to speak its language. Your nervous system, if it's actively self-protecting you, that means we experience that when we're dysregulated. Dysregulation is all the unpleasant things we experience, or the symptoms of it are the unpleasant things like anxiety, worry, frustration, fear, terror, rage, apathy, hopelessness, depression, dissociation, racing thoughts, inability to slow down, numb, disconnected, and a variety of other things. Those are all symptoms of active self-protection, which means our nervous system doesn't think we're safe. When that's happening, it's working very hard. So it takes a lot of effort. It's like an ultra marathoner, just running, 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 running. No one would say an ultra marathon runner can't stop. We'd say, of course you can. Just stop. And you just lay down. We might wonder if someone who's been laying down for a long time can go run, but for an ultra marathon, but we would never question ultra marathon runners' ability to stop running. And so same is true for our nervous system. We can think we're so inherently broken, but the truth is, it's like if you've been dysregulated a long time, that means your nervous system doesn't think you're safe. You are the most powerful ultra marathoner. You've been running, some of us have been running for decades, like nonstop. You are a pioneer. You've done Everest 75,000 times. And so if you can do that, and this is what science actually confirms, if we can do that, we most certainly can get our nervous system to rest. It rests when we're in our ventral vagal complex or we're in safety. And it believes that we're in safety. And so what we have to do is show, not tell it, via the language it understands, that we're actually safe. That language is called somatic, or the language of our body, the felt sense. Things like swaying, humming, vibration, movement, bilateral stimulation, among other things, using all of our senses, all support our nervous system to come back here into this moment in 2025 where I'm in safety, if I'm actually in safety. And the more that we can do that, it's literally like when I'm doing this work, I work with folks to befriend our nervous system. If I can first see it's never been trying to harm me, it's only been trying to help me. I really think of every moment of regulation, and this is how I do it, that I'm taking the hand of my nervous system. So if I'm actually in safety today in my house, there's nothing dangerous in here, and I want to take the hand of my nervous system if I'm dysregulated and say, oh, my love, you don't know we're here. You think that we're somewhere else. You think that dangerous thing in the past is happening, and you're working so hard to protect me, or you're foreseeing a dangerous future. Let me show you that I am safe so that you can rest and I can be free. The mantra that came to me so that you can rest and so that I can be free. And then we do something to regulate. Maybe that's humming, swaying, tapping. Again, as I named, bilateral stimulation regulates that, and a variety of other things. And when we do that, our nervous system responds. All of these nerve endings that constrict when we're dysregulated through this somatic embodiment, it's speaking to the nerve endings. The nerve endings begin to release. 80% of information goes from our body to our brain. So we're communicating up to our brain, hey, we're actually safe. And then when that happens, our nervous system responds fast. So because it doesn't want to do all this hard work, it just needs to know we're safe. So I just want people to know, listening, it's not something you can read a book and learn your way into. You have to show the nervous system that you're safe. And if you do that again and again and again and again, it starts to say, okay, we're safe. Now, I just want to name for anyone, if you're like regulated and you felt really regulated and then you're dysregulated again, that's because your nervous system loves you. Imagine if you were unsafe for decades and then you told your nervous system one time that you're safe and it was like, okay, I'll stop protecting you. That wouldn't be a very loving system. It needs data because it loves you so much. It needs to be ensured that you're actually safe.
Mm, thank you for sharing that. The way you explain it, you really take something so complex and make it seem so simple. And I love the analogy you gave of holding your nervous system's hand, and you said, "My love, we're safe." And I think that when you can actually look at your nervous system as a part of you that you can speak to in a loving way, you can start to have relationship with it. And once you can do that, you can see that if you talk to it, it can respond to you. And there can be that two-way street instead of just, climbing Everest nonstop, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I met my dissociation as a part, I was severely dissociated my whole childhood, and that followed me into my adult life, of course. And later, the more healing I got, the dissociation was mild, which I almost thought was worse because it was like I was here but not here, like you took a sleeping pill but you didn't. I'm just separate from the world. But when I actually met my dissociation, it came to me. It looked like a cloak, and it was showing me right in front of me that um, it's so devoted to me that any time that it thought I might be overwhelmed, it said, not to worry, I'll cover it up. You don't have to feel this. And when I could actually befriend it and say, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you. My parts wouldn't be alive and I wouldn't be alive. And thank you. When no one else protected me, you did again and again and again. And I am sorry that you've had to work so hard. And I'm sorry we've both had to experience the symptoms of that protection, which are unpleasant. And then we have to show it. This is where we do parts work. I am the ultimate protector. I am the lion or lioness. Let me show you how strong I am, the superpowers that I have, the life force energy that I have to protect if I need to. And when our protective parts and dissociation, anxiety start to see that, they start to believe it. And then they don't have to show up anymore because they know we're here now. The protector that never was now is.
Mm, thank you again for that example. And I think when we can look at our protective parts, no matter what they may be, as a being or a part or something that loves us so much, like your parts only care about you. They love you more than anything or anybody. And when you can see it that way, you can begin to befriend them. And like you said you saw your dissociative part and you were able to thank it for protecting you and for loving you. And if you think about not being loved by the people who should have loved you, and then when you go inside and you're able to create space and you're able to separate from your parts and see them for who and what they are, that relationship with your internal family and your system will allow for so much healing. It really will.
Yeah, so beautifully said. And that is so true. And it happens faster than you might think when we really approach it that way.
Mm. For someone who's been in survival for a really, really long time, what can happen to their identity being in a survival state for an extended period of time?
Well, every organ system, all of our blood, our energy, our life force, everything goes towards surviving.
Mhm.
Imagine where if I was running from a lion, my focus wouldn't be on, what lights me up? What do I feel called to? My focus also wouldn't be on, oh my gosh, I just spent my whole 20s running from a lion while other people were getting messy and playful and doing all the things and oh, I've been running from a lion. I wouldn't be able to process any of that. I would only be focused, my nervous system would be focused on surviving that lion attack. And so it doesn't leave space for us to be who we actually are. Another reason is because for most of us, um, even in loving homes, we are supposed to be born into this world and you arrive with adults around you who are fully focused and present on your arrival, but they did not project onto you that you are an extension of them. And so they said, oh my goodness, you beautiful being, alien, magical thing, show me who you are.
Mhm.
All I want to know is who you are. Just show me. Oh my goodness, more of you. Yes, more of you. Most of us didn't get that. And so what we learned is so brilliantly, before we could even tie our shoes, we learned how do I need to be or adapt in order to be loved, in order to be safe, in order to have my needs met, in order to be attached to. And that's what we do. And so it's not that we are not who we are. No, it's inside of all of us. It's that we had to become other things in order to survive. And so for that reason, for the reason of trauma itself, uh, most of us are not deeply connected to our essence, the most truest form of us. And so the beautiful thing about this work is I think of it like, in some ways, like we're being an archaeologist. We're digging up what's underneath. And the beautiful thing is, it's not like being an archaeologist and you dig and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to find anything. Oh my goodness, you're going to find the thing. It's right there. All you have to do is dig, and there you are underneath. The moments where I have found my essence, the different moments of that were so profound for me. Um, Meeting myself for the first time. It's a really powerful experience to have. And so the beauty of this is there's, there's not becoming anything. It's coming back to that beingness that is whole and perfect and mesmerizing. And we get to be witness to it.
Mhm. Thank you for that. That was so beautiful. And I love the illustration that you gave of digging up because we have to excavate. We have to get down and, get that brush like the
Yeah.
paleontologist, and we got to find it. And we got to be careful, and it takes time. And also, it's worth it because we're not finding an old dinosaur bone. Like, we're finding who we truly are.
That's right, exactly. And then life is, I said this before, but I've studied a lot of the ancient teachings and religions and all of the spiritual teachers. But essentially, if you look at all of it, it's the same thing said in different ways, which is great because we need that around the world. This has been happening since humans were around, repeating the same things in a way that can be heard. And it really seems to me like this idea of like what is heaven or nirvana. It is the connectivity to all things, being here and knowing I am everything and I am nothing. I'm all things. I am the tree and the water and the ocean and the air and you are me. And we are safe to be one another. We are safe to deeply connect. We're safe to be fully us. And, and it's just such an incredible thing to come back into and, and a thing that's possible for each of us.
Mhm. What can happen in relationships, not with ourselves, but with others when we are dysregulated or disconnected or living in survival? How can that affect the way we show up in relationships, whether it be familial, whether it be romantic or even just with friends or family.
Hmm. Well, what happens is the way that our nervous systems work is we have this threat detector called neuroception in our brainstem that's looking out to the world and internally, which is called interoception, looking out into the world to see if we're safe or not. And the way that it decides is looking to what I think of like an internal database or computer system, which has every lived experience inside of it. Now, it's really smart, this whole nervous system, the way it functions, because the threat detector looks to the database to decide if our present moment is safe or not. It doesn't need identical matches, it needs flavorings of similarity. So, for example, when it comes to romantic relationships, this is an area where people say to me, oh my gosh, before I was in a relationship, I felt like I had it figured out and I feel confident and good. I'm with my friends, like I feel really good, or in my work. When I get into a romantic relationship, I feel scared, out of control, confused, small, all the pain, a lot of pain. Like, what is going on here? And that's because our romantic relationship to our nervous system seemed the most like our earliest childhood experience. Remember, the threat detector looks for flavorings, not identical matches. So in our childhood, that was supposed to be our home, where we got love, connection, attunement, fulfillment, our most important person or people. Guess what a romantic relationship is supposed to be? All of those things. So what happens is when that threat detector is scanning to, let's say, in a romantic relationship, it's looking for how might you be like the past? Because I want to make sure I prevent against anything bad from happening. For me, growing up in a dangerous, very neglectful home, if I had a partner, let's say, who wasn't able to, I was sharing something vulnerable and maybe they were distracted, but nothing like my partner. They're just human and distracted. My nervous system says that looks a lot like that neglect. That was so overwhelming to not be loved and chosen. And so what we're going to do in this moment is protect you the way we did in the past. And all of a sudden I would shut down and I would have thought that they like, I'm never opening up to you again. I don't even know why I tried. I don't need anybody. I never needed anybody and I don't need you now. I wouldn't say that. What I would say is like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. No, I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it. But it would be an icy shutdown experience. So this is how trauma is superimposed onto our present life. It happens everywhere we go until it's resolved. I used to walk into any room I walked into. I would feel like I did not belong, like I was insignificant, less than, small, because a group of people would remind my system of being in a home where I was othered by my siblings, by my caregivers. I was uh, abused, dangerous, all of the things, not wanted. I was told that I was not smart and stupid and unloved and all things. So anytime I went into community, that's what would happen. And so this is how the nervous system works. It's not doing that because it wants us to suffer. It's saying, I love you so much, Sarah. I'm going to make sure you never have to re-experience that again. So here's the deal. I'm going to either try to keep you away from those things, or if you do have to go inside of them, I'm going to adapt the same way we did in the past to keep you alive. We'll do the same thing now because it worked, which for me meant get small. Don't say anything. Don't take up space because that's what I need to do to survive. So for all of us, until our past is resolved, it's going to be projected onto our present. And what's beautiful is when we resolve it, you can actually see your partner who they are instead of the projection of your past onto them. We can actually step into our purpose instead of seeing using our voice, taking up space, etc., as a source of danger. So it really is what frees us to respond to what's actually happening today.
Hmm. Can healing our nervous system repair the way we attach and relate to others?
Oh yes. I I went from having such intense avoidant and disorganized attachment that I would literally get close to someone and then I would disappear for a year, 2 years, 6 months. And when I would do that, I wasn't in the driver's seat. That was my attachment system saying connection isn't safe. And then what I would do is every day, I'm not kidding, I did this for years. I would write the same people's names down on a piece of paper, the people that I hadn't connected with. Usually, the more someone loved me, the more that I would pull away. And again, it was happening reflexively. And then I would beat myself up like, I'm such a bad person. Why am I doing this? I'm so terrible. Uh, I don't even deserve to be loved. And then I would tell myself, you're going to call him today. And then I couldn't. And I'm not kidding, every day. And then I would connect again, and then I would do the same process all over again. Or romantically, I would want someone close, and then they would get close, and I would feel terror, and I would push them away, pick fights, get them away. I had parts that tested. Like, how do I test? Because I don't trust you that you're going to love me, because nobody did. So how can I trust you? And I would oscillate between thinking they were the greatest thing ever to thinking they were terrible. I would oscillate between being in my adult self and being like, this is really right, to the next day being in a part. And they would literally look different to me, physically look different, because I was in a different part. And through embodying this work, all of that changed. I had the same pattern of the same type of person that I called in over and over and over again, because that's all my nervous system knew of what love was. The one who didn't choose me, who was, narcissistic. I don't use that word lightly. Who was unsafe, who I had no needs. And the more that I gave that to myself, the beautiful thing is, this isn't an outside job, it's an inside one. The more I started to love these parts of me, and that teenage girl who I was like, oh my gosh, look how amazing you are. No one thought she was amazing. And love her and protect her. My baseline for love changed. And those things were no longer attractive to me, because that's not what love was. Love was what I'd given myself. And now what was attractive was people who were cherishing and adoring and gentle and kind and protective. And those are the people I was drawn to. Those are the people that I called in friendship. By the way, this will happen in work. A lot of people find themselves in work environments that mimic childhood. And all of this is within our power to do it. Really incredible.
Thank you for sharing that. What is one thing you want people to feel deeply when they come across your work?
That they make sense. That makes me really emotional. It's a thing over a decade ago. I didn't even realize I was saying. I used to have an individual practice alone, and one day a client, two clients, one had made T-shirts that he was giving out to people that said, you make sense on them. And he said, because you keep telling me how much I make sense. And this other woman crocheted a pillow, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was doing it because it was originally coming from my own experience of feeling so completely like I didn't make sense, and then realizing I did. And then all that I wanted, and it was all even subconscious at that point, was for people to know how much they do. Because if I make sense, that means I'm not broken. And if I make sense that I'm not broken, that means there's something I can do about this. And I can live an empowered life and step towards the things that I feel called to. And the other thing I really want everyone listening to know is that anyone ever gives you the message or the inclination that they are done or they've got it all figured out, that's so not true. I was saying this to a friend of mine the other day. I said, life, if you really do life right, I think it is the most glorious, alivening experience. And it's also the most terrifying, not from a trauma response, but scary, also grief-filled, shattering thing. Because to fully love means my heart is going to break in some way. To be fully alive and step towards something means I'm going to be disappointed too. When we're regulated, we have the capacity for all of that. And that, for me, there are always new things that I'm being invited into. Things that the universe, via other humans usually, is saying, okay, my love, more fully expressed. And when I say that, I don't mean that not being content with our life or that I want more material things. It's that I want to be more playful. I didn't get play as a kid. So I want to be able to have silliness times 10. I want more of that. And those sorts of things are really scary if they're things that were inhibited or not available. And so what I want everybody to know is that if life done right, we're always continuing to take an invitation into becoming more of who we are and living more and more alive.
Thank you for that. All right, we're at the big one. This is the question that touched both of us, and I knew it was going to be something that you would answer in a way that would give hope and healing to so many. So I want to ask it. Um, Access to therapy, coaching, nervous system work, it's a privilege. And for so many people, it may be completely out of reach. So I want to ask you this. Imagine a woman, a single mother. She's living in deep poverty. She works 3 jobs. None of them pay enough. She's behind in rent. The fridge is almost empty and her body hurts from exhaustion. She's doing everything she can to survive, but every day feels like she's drowning just a little bit more. She doesn't have time to journal, nor would it matter. She's never heard of inner child work or nervous system regulation because that sounds like something for people with money. But tonight, just before she collapses in bed for a few hours of sleep, she scrolls on her phone and for a split second, she sees you. What do you want her to know? She'll never work with you. She'll never afford therapy. But in that one moment, you have one chance, one window to speak to her heart. What does this woman, buried in hopelessness, who thinks this kind of healing isn't for her, need to hear? And what do you tell her?
Oh, I'm so moved by it because she's real. I hope
Mhm.
she's listening right now. I want her to know a lot of things, but one is that she's the reason I get up every day, and she's the reason that I do the work that I do. I think about her in everything that I create and everything that I offer, and I see her so fully in her goodness and in her strength. And even if she walks through the world and feels unhelped and invisible, I really deeply want her to know that this is a space why I have a podcast. I also, I would say, reach out to me because I'll give you a scholarship. Um, that that you are so loved, even if the world hasn't shown you that, and that you are so cared for. And I hope and pray that you come back to this space every day, and I will show up for you and love you and see you in ways that the world maybe hasn't, and I don't want anything back. And what an incredible hero you are in your children's lives, and that you are never supposed to have to walk it alone. And how sorry I am that our culture has taken us away from the way we are supposed to be in our connectivity. And even though we may never meet, I do want you to know, and this goes for anyone listening, where your story is your own version of this woman's story, that there was a moment when I was doing this work where I saw myself like traveling time back to this teenage me in my basement room in New Hampshire and taking her hand and saying, I'm going to walk with you out of this room. I came back for you. And that's the way that I see this work in this mother and each person listening, that I will walk right beside you and show you how powerful you are and how extraordinary you are and what a hero that you are, not only in your own life, but in those around you. And that everything that you desire when you're on your knees and you're feeling like maybe it's not possible or maybe no one cares. The truth is there is me, but there are others like me too. I didn't know they existed when I was young, but they exist. And that everything that you need resides inside of you. And that for others listening, if you have moments in your life where you feel like it's selfish to do this work or to invest in yourself, I want you to know it is truly the most selfless thing you can do. Because when we come into regulation, I believe deeply that it is our duty to take that medicine and go out into the world and give it. And if you are listening and you have moments where you feel regulated, please give that to the others you see in the world. We have mirror neurons. Our nervous systems affect each other, and you have no idea what it does when you are like this mother that you just described, who, like I was in so many ways, who I thought there wasn't a being on this earth who cared about me. And if you have somebody who just takes your hand and says, "Hey, how are you?" or smiles at you when you're crossing the street, how far that goes. And if we can do that for one another, we help each other heal. We help each other come home. And again, as I named before, I think there are more and more of us, I hope, being called to the work in this way. Because of my way that I came into this world, I can't not think about this mother or the people. I have people inside of my programs, women write in, they live in Iran, and they say, "I don't have access to even pay you. I can't, I have no credit card, no nothing. Can I take this program?" And of course, the answer is yes. Of course, the answer is yes. That's why I do this. And so whatever we can do to make this possible is what I am devoted to. And that the people that need it the most, usually the people that don't get it. And so just knowing there is deep care for you, even if our government and our world have not shown us that. Like that Mr. Rogers quote, "Look for the helpers." He kind of saved my life. Him and Bob Ross. I know that's a weird combo, but I was so poor we only had PBS. So I just watched them on repeat. And Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers really saved my life. But that's what I would say. And be kind to yourself. I work with a lot of parents who beat themselves up and say, "Oh, what I'm not giving my kids." And what I would say to this mom and any mom who'd be with the parent listening to this is, I wish I had a parent like you. I probably wouldn't have had this calling on my life and be doing this for a living if I did. My life would have been totally different to have a parent that actually thought about that. And a lot of words, but that's what I hope she feels.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. That was so beautiful. Thank you for this. Thank you for listening to your calling. Thank you for being selfless. Thank you for doing the work to be a bridge for others, a bridge for healing, a bridge for hope. If people want to find you online or on social media, where can they find you?
Yeah. Thank you for your kind words. This has been such a special, I think maybe the most special podcast conversation I've ever had. Really beautiful. Thank you for creating the container for it. People can find me at sarahbaldwincoaching.com or on Instagram, Sarah with an H, B coaching. And I also have a podcast called You Make Sense.
And what about your programs if they wanted to join?
Yeah, I have lots of a variety of programs that I offer throughout the year, and you can get on wait list for them where you get significant support in terms of taking the program. So you can get on those wait lists by going to the link in my Instagram bio or my website.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. This has been very, very special. I do agree that this was one of the most special conversations as well because of how deeply connected I felt listening to you, your self energy, your story, and like I said, the work that you've done to be able to now go back and get others, not just that little girl that was in the basement in New Hampshire, but everybody else who is waiting for somebody to come back and get them. You are that person that can extend the hand to them. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for the way that you do it.
Thank you so much. And what you see me, I see in you. Thanks for letting me be here with you today.